I was an only child. Well, I am an only child. And I know that Grace was never going to get the sort of childhood I had in the Territory, where I had cousins over all the time. Prior to COVID, I wanted to go to America. And so I sort of felt, will my life be on hold if I have children? I'm a very different person to what I was when I first met James, you know. He's really, you know, now that I'm on the journey with him, I have become a different person.
For Miranda Tapsell, maternity leave isn't really a thing. Only a month after giving birth to her son Vincent, adding to an already busy household for Miranda, husband James, and their 3-year-old daughter Grace, she's also welcoming another baby of sorts into the world this week, a new 8-part TV series, End Bub. A project 4 years in the making that explores parenthood and kinship in ways very rarely seen on Australian screens. 10 years ago, when Miranda won not one but 2 Logies, she used her speech to call for the importance of having more people of colour on screen. And when those stories still weren't being made, she decided to make them herself, writing, producing and starring in Top End Wedding and now the follow-up, Top End Bub. So how do you launch a new series while navigating sleepless nights and caring for a newborn? And what does it take to keep creating stories that celebrate family, culture and community at a time when representation has never mattered more? In today's episode, Miranda joins me to discuss the joy and challenges of her growing family, why she's a big believer in the power of a good rom-com, and how she refuses to wait for permission to tell the stories she knows the world needs to see. Miranda Tapsell, welcome to the Stella Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's so lovely to have you here in person. You have just come from the set of shooting today's cover of Stella.
Yes.
And you look amazing. And you were there with your newborn son, Vincent, and
yes.
Grace, who'll be turning 4 later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, photo shoots, you've done a lot of them over the years.
Yes, not my first rodeo.
Not the most relaxed, natural of environments, but how is it when you have a newborn and a toddler in tow?
Well, I think the benefit of having a kid almost turning 4 is that you can kind of talk them off the ledge, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
so when you can feel a meltdown coming on, you can sort of talk to them and reason with them. So yeah, everything sort of fell into place for me in terms of how the difference in age between the two of them. Like there's only one that needs nappies changed.
Yeah. Very smart.
So yeah, it was actually quite a smooth shoot.
Was this one of your first family photos? Because Vincent is only a month old.
It actually is. And it is true that the second completely gets forgotten about. People keep asking, where are the photos of Vincent? And we just haven't taken photos. Whereas I look back at newborn photos of Grace and there's just thousands and thousands of shots of her. So I'm apologizing in advance when my son sees this. He knows that there was no ill intent. I think we were just busy.
That he will find many other second and younger siblings who completely relate. Miranda, this is a pretty busy time for you. Like I said, Vincent is only a month old, was born mid-August. This week, Top End Bub has just started streaming. That's a new 8-part series on Prime Video. So you have been on the red carpet doing a press call. So, I mean, mat leave, maternity leave, parental leave, that's not a big thing in your household, I'm guessing.
I know. I basically got straight back into it. But, this is Top End Bub was 4 years in the making. You know what I mean? I'm talking before Grace was born.
Yeah.
That's how long it takes to get things over the line. And that's with a film having preceded that, there's IP already in place and we still took that long to get it all together. And so, it's just, this is a show that is so dear to my heart and I think it's come at a perfect time as well. I've brought two children into the world at a very precarious time, not just overseas, but here in Australia. And, I just brought I've just put all of my thoughts, feelings and opinions into my work, I just thought, well, this is how I'm going to deal with my despair, my frustration at the things that are happening around me and in the world. And I'm so lucky that, that people are so excited to see it.
Well, they really are excited because, as you say, it's taken a long time to get it to this point and get it to the screen. Top End Wedding was released in 2019, so even before that little word called COVID had ever been heard of. So it is very much anticipated, and a lot has happened in your life. As you say, at that point you weren't even sure if you and James were ready to start a family, and then Grace came along, and then Top End Bub. So obviously that's a theme of the film and the 8-part series, which we'll talk about, but also in your personal life as well. So it's sort of life imitating art, art imitating life, and all of the complexity and the joy all there in your work.
And one thing that I learned from my co-writer, Josh Tyler, who I wrote the film and the series with, he just said, because he asked me one day, like, do you think you want children? And when we were writing Top End Bub, I was sort of on the fence because prior to COVID, with the film having come out, I wanted to go to America. I wanted to sort of try to go a bit more international and audition for more American things. So I was still very career oriented. And I just remember him saying to me, and so I sort of felt the way that Lauren did, you know what I mean? Like, will my life be on hold if I have children? And I got told by Josh, there is never a right time to have a kid. You're never going to have your ducks in a row. You're never going to be where you want to be in your career, and you're never going to have enough money. And there's all these things that the places that you wanted to have traveled, all of that stuff hasn't happened yet. But if you want a kid, then you've just got to commit to it, And so I really took that advice seriously. And I thought, well, why wait? This is what I want. I was an only child. I am an only child. And I know that Grace was never going to get the sort of childhood I had in the Territory, where I had cousins over all the time. My house was always full of people. So I thought, well, I need to give her a sibling, and it's what I would have wanted to. I kept asking my parents, am I going to have a sibling? And that just wasn't going to happen with me. So I thought, well, this is what I want. And also, when I grow old, I want someone to be there to say goodbye to me,
that's right.
All of it. I know it's kind of I know it's a little bit selfish, but I also believe that Grace and Vincent are going to do great things and change what's happening in the world.
And I don't think it is selfish at all. I think everyone is making the decision that feels right for them and their loved ones, and creating their own family and community, whatever that looks like. And it was great advice that you got there, because there never is that right time. And as you're saying, you initially, when you were filming Top End Wedding years ago, were real, and then writing Top End Bub, still thinking it over, which I think is something every woman relates to, and I'm sure a lot of men relate to as well. That whole idea, especially when you're younger, oh, my life will be put on hold, my career will be put on hold.
I just think that what was really great about continuing Lauren and Ned's story was that we actually got to explore all different types of parenthood, because people don't necessarily become parents through birth, through giving birth. And also I think it's completely valid for women to actively choose not to have children in their life as well. And so we wanted to explore all of those different, because you're not any less a woman for not having children. And also there's women that can't have children. So I think we wanted to actually explore all of those things in End Bub, and make people feel like they're valid in their choices.
This is something that is explored so beautifully in End Bub. The title would suggest this notion that we top-end wedding, and then, first comes love, then comes marriage, and now comes Lauren and Ned with the baby carriage. But that is not what is explored and what is the storytelling that unfolds in End Bub. It's actually a story of kinship, and particularly the way that when we talk about it takes a village, what that actually really looks like in First Nations communities. Tell me a little bit about that aspect of the storytelling.
I'm so happy you picked that up, Sarah. That means so much to me, because I know that so many different cultures relate to that. Like it's not just the Aboriginal community that has that village mentality to family. But I grew up, like I said before, I grew up in a full house with cousins coming in and out, family staying. And so there wasn't just one person that raised me. And my community has been getting such a bad rap lately. And I feel like it's sort of, in some ways, really blown up and escalated, after The Voice. And I thought that using my art to show the facet of my community that people don't see, the generosity, the inclusion, is something I was just, it was so important to me. And making Top-End Wedding proved that it worked, because rom-coms are so great at making an audience invest in the characters. So now that people were already invested in the characters, they're now starting to empathize with the way that this particular family lives. That's what, I'm now at that point in my career where I wasn't sure when I first started out in acting, what I was doing this for. I never did it for the fame, but I did want to be more than just a 4'11" brown girl, Mm-hmm. People didn't know how to relate to me. I felt as a young person, and getting into acting was me realizing that I could change people's perceptions about me. And because I was so confident on stage, everyone went, wow, you're actually really good at this. And they started to, value me differently. But now that I feel empowered, I know what kind of stories I want to make. And these are the kind of empowering stories I want to make about my community.
And mission accomplished, because Top-End Wedding before it, Top-End Bub is engaging. It's entertaining. You watch it, and we saw how many people went to see Top-End Wedding, and I'm sure that we will see the same with this new series revisiting these characters. But there is also messages there, and not in, an earnest, eat your green vegetables way, in the best way, as you're talking about, through storytelling, and also the representation, and also just the location as well. I mean, the fact that really Darwin is another character in Top-End Bub, in the same way that Manhattan was the other character in Sex and the City. I mean,
100%.
So there's so many different things that you are achieving through your storytelling. I'd love to ask you specifically about each of those. Miranda, it was 2015. You won 2 Logies. One wasn't good enough. Miranda Tapsell. won 2 that night. And you gave a speech that everyone that watched that ceremony would remember, and it really was talked about. Always a bit of a cliche to say it sparked a national conversation, but it really did, because you were calling out about having the importance of having people of colour on screen. And then we're sitting here 10 years later, your own work in this area, in terms of the work you've created for yourself, the representation you show, the people that are working with you on screen, behind the scenes. Do you feel that progress has been made over that 10 years? And you must also, I hope, feel rightfully proud of the role you have played as a pioneer in that space.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. That's the reason why I started making my own work, Sarah, because I think, while I feel like there has been, a lot of progress, I think, there is still a lot of trepidation, when it comes to, casting and writing in characters of colour. And like you said before, I think people do see it as like eating your vegetables, and it shouldn't be, like for me, like that's it, making Top End Bub was just me wanting to make the kind of stuff that I wanted to sit on the couch and binge, I wanted girlfriends. I wanted mums and daughters to sit down with a pizza or with like rosé, and watch these shows. Like I want popcorn television as much as anyone else, especially after a long week. And people just weren't making those kinds of shows, especially not with Aboriginal people. But I'm throwing all the money at all these streaming services, so I deserve a slice of that cake too. I deserve to turn on the television and watch and have all of these choices. And I wasn't willing to wait for someone to go and do that. I was going to do it myself.
I love it, because even the genre of the romantic comedy, much less something that explores the complexity of some of the storytelling in Top End Bub, and also is rightfully making sure that Indigenous Australians are being represented on screen. Even the genre of rom-com has often, I'm going to say has in the past, still can be a little bit dismissed as, that's for, oh my gosh, women. God forbid. David Stratton, the late film critic, was on the Stella podcast with me last year. And I actually asked him about rom-com, because I'm a big champion of the genre for all the reasons that you've spoken about, Miranda, for entertainment, for engaging. But I also think this idea that they have to be light and frothy. By the way, nothing wrong with that. Some of my favorite are light and frothy, but some of them are not. Some of them explore the themes that are also explored in Top End Bub: grief, family dynamics. Some of them obviously explore issues of dissolution of a marriage and estrangement. Very serious issues are explored in rom-com. As a genre, it's just nice to see it being taken seriously, I think. Would you agree?
Well, that's the thing. I think it's really great when women write rom-coms as well. Men have done a great job with the genre, Richard Curtis. But I think, the Nora Ephrons of the world just really gave a fresh perspective, because it was from the female perspective of dating and marriage. And the thing is, rom-coms have, they come in all different kinds of, there's almost, what do you say? There's also subgenres to the genre. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You've got the Sharknadoes of the rom-com, and then you've got the Jaws. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. If you were to make an equivalent, you've got your B-grade stuff, and then you've got your Oscar contending type of stuff. your Sense and Sensibilities, Emma Thompson, all of those kind of things. So, I think, but the problem with this particular genre is that because it was packaged for women, it's so quick to be dismissed. Everyone's just like, oh, this is just tacky stuff. And I'm like, well, no one talks about the Expendables like this. Do you know what I mean? No one talks about there's too many explosions and not enough plot in a Michael Bay film, but yet everyone's so quick to do that with failure to launch, for instance,
100%.
It's ridiculous.
And the dissection of, that would never happen. You'll see it on any sort of female-driven vehicle will be like, well, that's not realistic, or this didn't happen. It's like, excuse me, that's right. Did you just see one of the highest-grossing films of last year? There's nothing remotely plausible about that superhero film. But why do we suddenly?
Exactly. How many times did Daniel Craig get shot at? And he didn't die?
Yeah.
But he shoots one and all of them die. Like there's an explosion behind them. So come on, don't talk to me about believability. And you're not watching it for believability. You know what I mean? You're watching it for, I don't know, I watch it for the belief that people can change, that they're open to compromise, that they're willing to learn from the other person. And I get it. Like a lot of people would argue that it's often the woman that has to compromise. And that's sort of why in Top End Wedding and Top End Bub, we are seeing Ned having to question where he sits in the relationship and what he does and what he needs to do to make it work. And Gwilym Lee was just, I was in London, at the time he was auditioning. And, so I went in to read for him, and it was just so beautiful to see this actor try and work his way through all the problems. He wasn't huffing and puffing and going, oh, Lauren, why do we need to go up to Darwin? Oh, your family are so demanding. Like he was going, okay, how do we find your mum? You know what I'm saying? Like it was just such a beautiful quality in him. And he brought it again in the series. So, I really sort of got to play within the genre in terms of the way this couple works.
And you can really see that energy that he brings in the character of Ned. It explains so much what you've just said, because as you said earlier, it's not like these are easy things. These are serious issues that are being explored. I mean, taking on the responsibility of parenthood, the circumstances in which that happens for Lauren and Ned in Top End Bub. And they are both struggling with things.
Yes.
Everyone that I've seen so far, I haven't seen all 8 episodes. Everyone that I've seen so far has their flawed moments and is visibly struggling with issues and is internally struggling because that's what human beings are.
Yeah. And that's also like what I wanted to do for my community as well. Like I find that, a lot of Aboriginal characters have to be on their best behaviour. They can't be too problematic. But I wanted to show Aboriginal people just messing up just like everyone else and making terrible choices on behalf of their family and their relationship, and because that's what non-Indigenous characters get to do. And the great thing about the genre kind of saves the characters in a way, because like I said, when it comes to compromise and compassion, like they always try and find a way to redeem themselves in the eyes of their partner and their family. So it was just such a great genre to play in.
You mentioned earlier the voice referendum. We're coming up to 2 years since that failed to pass. That was late 2023. Obviously a really devastating moment for so many Australians, but of course, especially for First Nations Australians. How are you feeling as that sort of 2 years from that devastation of what happened at the end of 2023 when the voice referendum was rejected?
Oh, if I'm honest, it was sort of happening in like lockdown as well, because we had George Floyd all over the news, and that got followed by Kumanjayi Walker. And while like End Bub doesn't sort of bring up all of these horrific things that continue to affect my community, what I hope the series does is to get people to care. And that's what I feel like is missing, right? I think it's always been an uphill battle for my community to get people to engage in the issues that affect us. And in the Territory, they've just lowered the age of criminal responsibility again down to 10 years old. Like 10 years old, a 10-year-old going to jail is just so unfathomable to me. And I think, unfortunately, like a lot of people find Aboriginal families is like negligent and dysfunctional. Like that's all they're seeing in the news. And that's the algorithm that keeps spinning through social media. And so I wanted to break that. I wanted to show the kind of family that I grew up with, where everyone's invested in the child, where everyone actually cares about like what happens. It is just so excruciating having the same conversation again and again. And so I thought, okay, well, rather than like get into arguments with people on social media where we get nowhere, and also, like, to be fair, I feel like when I talk about it, in papers, like I feel like sometimes it can get lost. Like a lot of the context can get lost. So like my work is the perfect place to show that. And so I can put all of my frustrations and despair and put it into joy and empowerment, so that people can go, okay, this is why we need to like start making amends with the First Nations community.
Absolutely. And I think storytelling can arguably be, in fact, I think definitely, but I'll just put the arguably there for other people to draw their own conclusions, the way to change hearts and minds, because we're simply demonstrating how things are, as you say, rather than getting into that back and forth, which can often be futile.
Yeah.
And just recently we've seen in Australia those marches that happened earlier this month, the March for Australia, and the divisiveness that has sparked up again, spilling out into living rooms and parliament and, streets and neighbourhoods all over Australia. I think that's obviously a really scary backdrop for so many people as well. It's nice to see some more positive ways to, I think, be having conversations about what diversity really looks like in Australia, and that it genuinely isn't anything to be scared of. And the things that people seem to be worried about, let's actually talk about those issues. If housing affordability is an issue, let's talk about that. If we've got concerns about lack of funding in transport, let's talk about that. Why does it have to get served up as yet more racial vilification and divisiveness.
I'm sorry, if you're going to complain about, an overpopulation, of so-called, immigrants, don't have yum-cha. Do you know what I mean? But I refuse to be, nihilistic about any of this. I truly, because Aboriginal people have seen so many ebbs and flows in society. I feel like my ancestors have seen the world end over and over again, and it hasn't stopped them. And the reason why we're still here is because of our stories. And that's something that you can't take from us. We might not have been given a voice, in Parliament, but we always used it outside of that anyway. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Let's talk about a beautiful part of Australia, the top end. As I said, it is another character in Top End Wedding and then again in Top End Bub. You were photographed on location of Kakadu National Park for Stella's second anniversary, which you were just in the middle of filming Top End Wedding. Can you believe? 2018 that was. So when that cover came out just ahead of Top End Wedding being released the year before. So wow, a lot has happened. Miranda, you've been very busy since then. But I'd love to talk about the depictions of these beautiful parts of the world on screen. And I mean, surely we're going to get a lot more tourists out here, because I know that happened with Top End Wedding. And then, of course, COVID came along. God willing, we're not going to get another return of COVID. So I imagine there'll be a lot of people, both within Australia and internationally, looking up exactly where that where is that, and heading there, booking their flight straight away.
Oh, Sarah, it's been bananas, because I've obviously returned to Darwin and the Tiwi Islands particularly since having children. And every time I've gone on the ferry to Tiwi, there's always someone that comes up to me and says, I watched Top End Wedding and I just had to come out to the Tiwi Islands. And so I'm just baffled by the number of people that have decided to, because there are so many people that have said, "Oh, yeah, I've never gone that far," and I guess it's because a lot of people can't really justify the flight up. But it is so worth it. If you're willing to go on an adventure, if you're willing to, grab a car, grab a 4-wheel drive, go out to Kakadu, go swimming at Gunalom Falls, go and see, the amazing rock art at Nolangi. It's so worth it. I still have people say to me, I moved over to Europe because, I just love the culture and I love the history. And we just don't see enough of it here. And that's not what I grew up with, because I was going on excursions when I was at school to these places, seeing, a painting of a thylacine that goes back 50,000 years. I think people will really have their eyes opened when they go there themselves, and hopefully the show and the film gets people to do that.
I just wanted to ask also, Miranda, see if you've got any thoughts about this. Recently, there was a group of influencers. They visited Uluru and they were criticised for treating the sacred site like a backdrop and a prop for their content. I'm not calling out who those people were individually, but just more the general issue. For you that treats these locations with great respect, do you have any view about that? I mean, this is something that's happening globally, of course, with Instagram culture, but specifically for like places like the Top End. How do you feel about it?
You know what's crazy, Sarah? I was in Berlin with James, my husband, prior to having children. We went on this big European trip and we obviously walked past the wall and there were just so many people just taking selfies, you know, and I guess that's what people forget when they come to Uluru. Like, obviously it's a different historical, context, but you know, you still have to treat the place with the same respect, you know. This is where it's, but also, I'm just trying to think of a way how to explain this.
It's okay.
A lot of the traditional owners of that area feel responsible for the visitors that come to the place. And that's what the Mire people in Kakadu were like as well. You know, you weren't drinking at Ubia Lookout because you could stumble and fall off, you know? Like it, you know, even if you don't believe in the spirituality that surrounds the place, you know, you are going to someone's house, you know. So you do have to have a certain respect about what you can photograph, especially if it's a particular place where thousands of women have had babies, you know, or where hundreds of men throughout the generations have danced. You know, this is a point of pride for the traditional owners of Uluru. So, to me, it's just so straightforward and so not complicated.
No, I think it's just such a great answer because it's just about people understanding the why. And I think you've answered that so perfectly. I wanted to ask you about something else that you've got coming up this year on the work front, Miranda. Just recently announced your first hosting role with Portrait Artist of the Year on the ABC.
Yes.
How did you find hosting and playing Miranda Tapsell as opposed to any of the characters that you've played over the years?
Oh my gosh, it was such a different ball game, Sarah. I feel like I had to think on my feet a lot more, especially when it comes to, because you really had to watch and observe the painters, look at their work, ask them about it. Whereas like when I'm acting and playing a character, not only do I have this armor that I feel safe behind because I've got makeup, costume, what have you, I've had a script that I've rehearsed over and over again, and there's very little improvisation involved, you know. And I don't know, I need to feel extremely secure and relaxed to be able to improvise. And the level of improvising that I was doing was just so much that I was just like, oh, okay, like I just have to go along with this and just chat to people naturally. So it was definitely a lot of learning to do. I was also 3 months pregnant. So I was just, you know, this was the first trimester, morning sickness was there. And so I was like trying not to throw up while I spoke.
So a really easy time of it, basically. Did it light a fire in you? Do you think that all of those skills that you've learnt doing this series, do you think that we see you in more hosting roles and those improvisation skills and not being the character and just being yourself? Do you see more work in that area now that you've pushed yourself outside of your comfort zone, morning sickness and all?
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I did forget was that, you know, I did, a lot of podcasting with my friend Nakia Louie prior to that. So I felt a bit rusty because it had been a couple of years since I'd done the podcast. But doing Portrait Artist of the Year, hosting in front of a camera made me realize, okay, all those skills that I had interviewing people on this podcast, I need to apply to this now. And so I did get a bit of a warm up, to be fair. And now I feel like I can take everything that I've learnt from Portrait Artist of the Year. I feel really galvanized, and I can do more of that side of things. I used to love Ernie Dingo in The Great Outdoors back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And Noni Hazelhurst in Better Homes and Gardens when I was growing up. So, I really feel like, you know, if they can do it, I can do it.
I love that. Yeah, you get your moment. It's always great, isn't it, when you find yourself at a point in life and go, oh, that thing that I was watching growing up, that skill or that role. And I thought, oh, I wonder how I get to be doing what Ernie and Noni are doing. And there you go. You talked earlier about how in the wake of Top End Wedding being such a big global success, you were thinking about moving overseas and exploring options there internationally. Of course, everyone knows we always list the roll call of all the Aussies that have gone and made big globally. In fact, this same issue of Stella, of which you're the cover, Margot Robbie is interviewed inside. She's got a new film coming out with Colin Farrell. So obviously Margot is, you know, someone that has done huge things internationally. It always feels like a bit of a reductive question to ask an Australian actor, so when are you going to go and make it in Hollywood, Miranda? But does that itch, is that still there that you first seriously felt in 2019?
Oh, look, I'm not like ruling it out, you know. I'm always going to put my hat in the ring and see what happens. But in the meantime, you know, I've got so many stories that I want to tell and make. And now that I've learnt that I don't need to be given permission to tell those stories, I'm just going to continue to, you know, write in my home office, pick my kids up from daycare, and then hopefully go into production, you know. That's the kind of life I'm happy to live. I'm really happy with where I'm at.
And so that's then the annoying thing. You've got Top End Bub coming out, and the annoying thing is journos then going, so we've had Top End Wedding, now Top End Bub's just started streaming this week. Do you think you'll revisit these characters in the future? So I'll be that annoying journo and ask that question. But I'd like to ask a bit more, my final question. One of the many things I love about Top End Bub, and we've talked about a lot of them, is this notion of the quote unquote happily ever after. So you have the wedding, and then as we see, and of course everyone knows this is also in real life, there is no happily ever after. And as I say, I think that's something that is depicted so wonderfully in Top End Wedding and Top End Bub. What do you think about that whole notion of happily ever after? And we still sort of sell it to one another, especially to women.
Oh, we absolutely do. And I really have to give Josh credit for wanting to continue Lauren and Ned's journey, because we only saw them in the prism of their wedding. And people are I'm a very different person to what I was when I first met James, you know. He's really, you know, now that I'm on the journey with him, I have become a different person. I used to be so much cooler.
I think you're pretty cool now, I'm just going to say.
Now I'm just a big dag, you know. No, but that's the thing. People change and grow as they live with their forever person, and that's what Josh and I really wanted to explore. And with the happily ever after, I think we really wanted to burst that bubble for so many people, because we wanted to show them that a lot of great things can come from being on shaky ground, because here are two people in Lauren and Ned that really, really love each other. And while there's all this tension and frustration that comes with their relationship, the fact that they're continually trying to navigate what they need to do to stay together is going to make it's going to make people's hearts burst. And I guess like in a world where we've seen, just particularly reality shows where, you're watching two people and you're questioning like, why are they together? We see so much of that, but we're not seeing the relationships that are continuing to thrive and, stretch.
The real life, the really interesting part, I think.
Yeah.
Which is, if you haven't already watched it, everyone, End Bub is streaming now on Prime Video. Miranda Tapsell, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I disagree with you have the right to self-describe as a big dad, but I personally have different perception of you. But whatever it is, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do next. I think this era of your work, looking back from that Logie's moment 10 years ago, like I say, mission accomplished. Really genuinely very excited to see what happens next. So thank you for your time today and giving us a bit of a glimpse at this chapter.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. We'll go with your perception, babe. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Miranda.